Hello, guys.
Hello.
Obviously, hope you enjoy our sketch that will be up by the time I upload this on the other channel. We did a fun sketch in there.
Let me. There we go.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyway, so this is an exciting review, guys. Just forewarned, spoilers.
Spoilers
so
ahead.
If you have not seen Ghostbusters Afterlife, click on this video until you have seen it.
Correct.
Because we will be talking about the whole movie and our thoughts on it and stuff like that.
And it is not spoiler free. We are talking about like everything that's in the movie. We just saw it last night for opening.
Yep.
And so again, if you do not want to be spoiled, click away now.
Watch the movie, then come back and you can hear our thoughts.
Yes.
So for those of you who have seen it, these are our thoughts on it. Yeah. Before we get into the story, I know personally for me, it was a nice pick-me-up because I had a very stressful week. I won't get into it, but very stressful week. And then, I saw this movie and it really brought my spirits up. If you're wondering about it, guys, or if you're going by what some negative critics are saying, they're wrong. This movie is excellent. There's just a lot of balance in terms of humor, action, drama. There's just a lot that comes together to make a completely great film. You have something to say? You're just kind of standing there like...
No, I'm listening. I'm listening. Honey, I'm just listening.
I don't even know if you're listening. It's just like...
I'm listening. Oh my gosh. Why are you making fun of me?
I'm making fun of you because you're wearing those glasses.
Okay, fine. I'll take them off.
Take them off! People aren't used to seeing you wear glasses. Those are her blue glasses.
Yeah, these are my blue light glasses.
So she can...
Okay.
Less strain on her eyes.
Yes.
But, Anna, you wanted to say anything? Or?
Yeah. Full disclosure, I was not too hyped about this film going into it. I went because, like, you had a really awful week, and it's like, okay, all right, this will be a nice date movie at least.
And sorry to cut you off, let me just finish.
Okay.
Anyway, I wasn't, like, overhyped for it, but from the trailers, I was like, all right, this looks like it'll be fun. And it was, because... we won't get into with big things. We didn't really like that 2016 thing too much. So, and didn't see that in the theaters. We rented it, but
on Redbox,
yeah,
for $1.
Yeah. So, So this was a nice, refreshing. Change.
I was about to say that as someone who was going into it with kind of just being like, it'll be all right at least. I feel like it'll be okay. Yeah. And it really exceeded my expectations. I thought it was a very, very good movie. Not as good as the original.
Well,
and I think we'll get into a little bit like the tonal. Difference is obvious. It's still like it's the disparity between critic rating and audience rating is already very apparent, and I don't want to get into like I don't really care what the critics are saying about it. I will say that this movie was not made to please critics. It was made to please fans of the original and their kids.
Yep.
That is why this movie, Ghostbusters Afterlife, was made, and I would say it definitely succeeds on that.
Yes. So to get into specific details of the movie and how things came about, basically Jason Reitman directed it. Jason Reitman is the son of Ivan Reitman. And co-wrote it. Yes, he is the son of Ivan Reitman, who directed the original Ghostbusters, and who his daughter also has a show called Working Moms on Netflix, so she's very talented as well. So very talented family. Jason Reitman, of course, directed Juno, as well as some other very well-done films. So a lot of times, when you first if you're seeing any other Jason Reitman film, you're like, I don't know if he's got the quite he's not the same style as his dad.
And he's noted that himself.
Yeah.
Ever since he first came onto the scene, like mainstream wise with Juno.
And he wasn't exactly.
Yeah, he's all like, I am not. He's not the same type of filmmaker as his father. He was actually scared of doing anything Ghostbusters related for a long time.
Yeah. But as he said, he grew up on the set of Ghostbusters. He was a little kid, and I was probably the first Ghostbusters fan. So for him, it was definitely a lot of heart put into it. And his dad also produced the film. Anyway, the basic premise is, as things open up, we see a older man, basically on a farm, kind of a very out there abandoned farm, and he's clearly, it's
Egon.
It's Egon. It's clearly supposed to be Egon. You don't see his face, obviously, because...
But it's Egon.
It's obviously a stand-in for Harold Ramis.
Yeah, like as soon as you see the profile.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he's alone by himself on this farm, and basically there's some kind of, spirit or demon ghost coming up. We don't know who it is yet.
Yeah, chasing after him.
Yeah, and I think he's trying to set a trap for it, but the thing doesn't go off, and then... as sort of, there's a lot of homages. Like, a lot of people are like, say, oh, these are just rip-offs. But it's like, there's a lot of homages to classic scenes from the original.
Yeah.
And he actually is sitting in the chair, much like Dana Barrett was, and Yarn's basically trying to him, and he does pass. I think they officially list that as a heart attack for his same death. So then we meet his daughter and her kids. Living in an apartment building, struggling to get by. And she finds out that he has passed, but she has a strange relationship with him. As basically, he just went off on some farm and, in her mind, abandoned the family, So she doesn't have a lot of good things to say about her grandfather, but he's left her this house. So... obviously facing eviction from her apartment, they takes the kids to Oklahoma, which it took me a while to figure out where they were. But it's like, it was some kind of country area, but it's Oklahoma. Okay.
Yeah, but there's country areas in New York too.
Oh, of course, yeah. So I wasn't sure if it was in New York, but yeah, they clearly later on you figure out that it's in Oklahoma.
Yeah, they say I think
Somerville is what
halfway through the movie, I think Paul Rudd's character mentions that they're in Oklahoma.
Oklahoma, yeah.
Somerville, Oklahoma.
Yeah. Yeah, we meet them, and she has two kids, one played by Finn Wolfhard from Stranger Things, and
It.
And several other movies he's made since then.
Yeah.
As kind of an older brother, he's pretty good as a mechanic. He seems to know his way around a car pretty well. And then he has a sister, played by McKenna Grace, who basically looks pretty much like she could be Egon's kid.
I would say they both had similarities. Like they look like they could be related to Harold Ramis, the way they've got their hair and everything.
Oh, totally.
And they look like siblings.
Yeah.
Really good casting on that front. And I think it's kind of purposeful that their mom, what was the mom's name?
I forget her name. It's played by
Callie,
yeah. Carrie Coon is the actress.
Yes, yeah. Callie, that their mom, Callie, who is Egon's daughter, looks nothing like him. And I think that's purposeful.
Yes, absolutely. So they're kind of trying to fit in this small town. Phoebe is the name of the granddaughter. And she's very into science, but she's also very socially awkward, too. Much like Egon. They go to this new school, and... Finn Wolfhard's interested in this girl at the diner and stuff like that, so that's kind of a plot point he's trying to get.
Lucky.
Yeah, he's trying to get to know this girl, and she works at a diner, and so he ends up working there too. So that's not a major plot point. It's just kind of establishing his character a little bit. Yeah.
Spinners is basically the build up to a sight gag at the film's climax.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
So then Phoebe goes to the public school, which she makes a comment
summer school,
yeah. But she makes a comment that it's just public school, very a very Egon type of thing. Also, she does a lot of pun jokes, which I truly appreciated as a pun master myself. But it also fits. It feels like the type of humor that Egon would have liked too. So
Do Re Egon.
So anyway, she meets this kid who's got his own little podcast, and he literally calls himself Podcast.
Because I run a podcast.
Yeah, the actor's name is Logan Kim.
Logan Kim. I've never seen this kid before.
I haven't either, but I want to see more of him.
Yeah,
he was really fun.
He deserves all the work. He was hilarious. He's so good.
So they start she starts to have a friend. And basically she's still kind of socially awkward at him, but she also discovers in her room that...
But so is he, which is why they click.
Yeah. So, in her room she has like a chess set, and periodically, one of the chess pieces keeps moving, like someone's playing chess with her. Mm-hmm. But you don't see anybody, so... Ghosts! But at the same time, she's not immediately believing in ghosts and stuff like that. And then Paul Rudd is the summer school teacher, which is funny, because he literally comes in and shows them Cujo and First Child's Play.
To a bunch of middle schoolers.
Yeah, it's like, here you go, have fun. But he's also a seismologist, so he's been studying. There's been a lot of shaking going on in Oklahoma, and they're not on a fault line, so it's kind of trying to figure out what it is. And so he kind of befriends, Phoebe and podcasts and stuff like that. But she starts to find like his little gadgets and stuff like that, and then
the Ghostbusters gadgets,
stuff, and then she eventually finds the one of the traps, and so they take the trap in and show Paul Rudd's character the trap, and he's like, "Oh, cool replica," and then he explains who the Ghostbusters were and plays a clip of the first movie.
Yeah, I would think as if it were actually a thing that
happened. Yeah,
and I think that's the thing that people were looking for back in 2016 when they decided to just hard reboot it so soon after Harold Ramis's death. And act like the original film never happened. This film definitely treats it like the first film happened. And that it has this supernatural event that happened in New York has kind of passed into sort of like pop culture lore. People who are old enough to actually have been there and seen it and remember it believe in it, but people who are young kids, like Phoebe, are still kind of like, there's no such thing as ghosts. Like it's a thing that people are aware of and have not forgotten about, because how the hell could you forget something like that?
Right.
But they're not. Not everybody believes.
Yeah, and Paul
Rudd, is a good way to go with it, I feel.
And Paul Rudd mentions there hasn't been a ghost sighting in 30 years.
Yes.
So, but there's obviously there's something going on there, obviously, with all the shaking. Mm-hmm. There's also this cavern.
Mining. It was a mining
thing.
Facility.
Yeah. And there's
from Shandor Mining.
Yes. They reference that character from the first one that was in the books. They were referencing. And I'll tell you who.
The books.
Well, in the first movie,
yes, honey, in the first film,
book, yes. That's what I'm talking about. The book in the movie they were looking at.
I see, okay.
Not a book.
All right.
I just mean like the book when they were looking at
I got it. Yes.
Jeez, Anna.
Yes.
But anyway, so yeah, and they go towards this area. Oh, wait, we got to the trap. They basically try to find a way to open the trap, so they hook it up to Paul Rudd's car, and they do the thing with the bus, and and then it doesn't open right away, and then it pops open, and spirit flies off, and basically immediately goes to the mighty.
Yeah, one of the dog spirits.
Yeah, I think that's what someone was pointing out. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So yeah, spoiler right there. Gozer.
Gozer is still
connected.
The villain.
Gozer is still the villain. And we'll get to that back to that in a minute.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Are you going to synopsis the whole movie?
Goddamn right I am.
Okay,
do you want to talk?
Okay, go.
Do you want to talk?
Go for it, honey.
No, go ahead. You can talk.
Okay, no. Basically, just that. So yes, they've opened the trap, and then she finds like the ghost busting.
Yeah,
equipment, and is like kind of like shooting things up.
Yeah,
which is pretty funny. And around the time that the Slimer of the 21st century, Muncher, is unleashed and starts wreaking havoc on the town.
Yeah, he eats metal and stuff like that.
Yeah, and so they have this really cool chase sequence through the town in order to catch him. Mm-hmm. They get arrested.
Yeah.
And all their stuff gets confiscated.
Yeah.
And that's around the time that the climax kicks into high gear.
Right. Yeah.
Because like the idea is that the Shandor Mining area, which has been closed off for decades because miners were mysteriously committing suicide and jumping into the pit back in the 20s. Well, it turns out Ivo Shandar, who is name dropped in the original film as the architect who created the building
in New York,
that Dana lives in, and that's how Gozer becomes a portal to awaken Gozer. Yeah. He did the same thing in this town with this mining chute, because he was the one who created it. That's why there's this weird Gozer monument down at the bottom of the mine shaft. Mm-hmm. And Ivo Shandar himself.
Yes, he's in some glass coffin.
His dead body in a glass coffin just hanging out.
And we'll get back to him in a little bit. Anyway. So, yes, and as that's going on, of course, they get arrested, and the mom is very upset about it. She was on a date with Paul Rudd's character and stuff like
Gary.
that. Yeah, Gary. And Gary Gruberson, I think was his actual character's name, which they make a comment on. That's a weird name. When she's in jail, she makes one phone call, and of course he says, "Who are you going to call?" Which is a nice little callback.
Oh my gosh! Yeah.
And then she ends up calling the Ghostbusters number, because she's of course seen the commercial with the "Ready to be with you," which, if you look at the thumbnail, is kind of what we were kind of imitating. So anyway, she calls it, and Dan Aykroyd, Ray Stantz, answers in his book from Ghostbusters, in his bookstore from Ghostbusters 2.
Occult books.
Yeah. From Ghostbusters 2.
It's a very niche bookstore.
Yeah, but which also confirms that, yes, they aren't completely ignoring Ghostbusters 2. Yeah. I think a lot of people might have thought they were, but it's pretty much the only real reference to Ghostbusters 2 in it, but it's there. And he basically said, he kind of gives a little bit of exposition as to what happened with Egon, and that they all had a good time busting ghosts, but then, Winston went on to become a businessman,
their separate ways.
Venkman went on to do his thing.
Yeah, it was basically, at one point, it was basically just Ray and Egon. Yeah. And then Egon randomly bought this farm out in Oklahoma. And
took all the equipment and the car.
Yeah, and just, abandoned everybody.
And so he's like, because at first he's like, he could rot in hell. And then it's like, well, he's passed. And then he's like, oh, shit,
Right, no kidding.
Yeah. And
that part was pretty heartbreaking.
So then her phone call gets cut off before he can, answer. But obviously that's giving a nice lead up to, the originals making their appearance, which is built up nicely. And then we have a great scene with Paul Rudd going to buy some, of course, Baskin-Robbins ice cream, which is just Ant-Man and just Paul Rudd is connected to Baskin. He should have a lifetime supply of Baskin-Robbins.
Yeah, at this point, my gosh. And it's that scene that everyone saw when
in the trailer.
When they were first releasing clips of the film before the trailer even came out. Because instead of one gigantic Stay Puft Marshmallow Man,
we have many little.
We have all the little Stay Puft Marshmallow Men running around causing havoc.
Yep, and basically
it's
killing each other, committing suicide. Basically, it's just but it's played for laughs.
It's dark. It's perfect dark comedy. It's hilarious. I kind of wish that scene had gone longer.
Oh, absolutely.
It was so very inspired and a lot of fun.
And then
also the Keymaster eating dog kibble.
Yes, the Keymaster dog is back eating dog kibble.
And now he's in Walmart, just ripping open the dog kibble bag and just.
And then, of course, he chases Paul Rudd, who gets to be the new Keymaster. He basically jumps through his broken window of his car that happened when the trap busted open.
Yeah.
And then he kind of recreates the Rick Moranis thing a little bit with his car. So he's the new Keymaster. Mm-hmm. So you're like, oh, well, who's going to be the new gatekeeper?
Who's the only adult female in this movie?
Yeah. So obviously, Carrie Coon's character is...
Callie.
Yeah. She goes down the basement, basically, and finds all the stuff that Phoebe had found, the Ghostbusters type stuff, but she also finds lots of pictures of her as a kid. So Egon did not just abandon her.
Basically it's evidence that... What they're ultimately building up to is that Egon isolated himself on the Oklahoma farm in an effort to protect the people he loved, his daughter and his family, because he didn't want them getting roped into all of this and potentially getting killed.
Right.
And so when she does go down and discovers the Wall of Cali, it basically implies that her father has in fact been there, and throughout all the important moments of her life. It's just he didn't feel that it was safe for him to let her know that he was there.
So obviously, because the dogs are coming, essentially.
Yeah, which was, like, that was also a thing where it's all like, gosh, like, because, I mean, again, it's implied that Egon's ghost brought her, like, led her down there, but it's like, you couldn't have warned her that Zool was waiting for her? Golly!
Yeah. And then, of course, she gets taken over as the new gatekeeper. Mm-hmm. Which obviously it's implied that they figure out that Egon was setting one big trap in the field. Yeah. Which is why I wasn't growing any crops, because everybody called him the crazy old farmer.
Dirt farmer
in town, yeah.
That was...
It's like, I never grew anything out there. What was he doing?
Yeah.
But he's basically trying to set one big trap to truly catch Gozar for good.
Yeah.
So basically, so she's a new gatekeeper. And she kind of recreates the there is no
yes.
there's
Zool. No mom, there is only Zool.
Yeah, which was a nice moment. You can tell that Carrie Coon was having a very good time with that part.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Because some of the dramatic stuff, she was fine with, but it was like, I think that's when she can, like, now I get to have fun. Yeah.
And she and Paul, like, that was real, like, and I think we'll get into this in a minute. Like, obvious callbacks to the original are very obvious.
Yes, homages.
They are not subtle in the slightest.
Yeah.
But like the scene where they recreate the whole Keymaster Gatekeeper scene, and it is essentially a recreation. But it is hilarious. It helps that it's between two characters who have already established, an attraction for each other, as opposed to Dana and Rick Moranis' character, who like where Dana barely tolerated him, and I was like, oh. Right. But here, like, they recreate it while also putting their own spin on it, like with Gary, like, kind of like reclining on a rock with like flowers behind his ear.
He offers a flower, and she eats the flower.
Oh my! It's very, very, and like when she's walking over, and then suddenly she's like. And then
she rips out her regular clothes and has the dress.
And then suddenly she has like the dress.
The exact same dress, which that was clever.
It was a very fun spin on it.
Yeah. So back to Evo, because the kids, including the brother and the girl.
Yes, they accidentally, like, they've started the process of awakening Gozer, and once the Keymaster and the Gatekeeper get together, that process...
Gozer.
And it brings Evo Shandar back to life, which was clearly always his goal.
Yep. And played by J.K. Simmons, who you see for about 2 seconds worshipping Gozer before she rips him apart.
She rips him in half!
Thanks for coming, J.K. Simmons.
Which is kind of hilarious, because, like, you don't, like,
you don't even expect it.
They got it's like, as soon as you realize, they got J.K. Simmons for this. Oh, he's going to be a major...
Nope, never mind. Gozer rips him right apart.
Because
and Gozar, who I found out...
Gozer doesn't care.
Yeah. Gozar, we found out after the movie, was played by Olivia Wilde. So, Olivia Wilde.
Again, clearly having a lot of fun in the part.
I didn't even recognize her with the way they...
It's
very similar to...
Yeah, it's all like her face looks familiar, but I can't put my finger on who this is. They did a really good job making her up to resemble the actress who played her in the original.
Yeah. And it's very... They also did a nice homage to them transferring into the dogs.
Yeah.
And then she's kind of trying to... Phoebe's trying to distract them so that, they can catch it in the trap, but it doesn't, unfortunately, work. But you can see that Egon has set up a trap to try to keep the spirits down.
Yes.
And the kids get out of there. They kind of they drive the car off again to try to get back to the house. Because they actually catch Gozar. They catch Gozar in the trap at that point, and they're going to bring the Gozar back and then let Gozar into the...
No, they catch Zool in the trap. Because they're able to unpossess Callie.
Oh, okay.
They catch Zool in the trap, and they're using Zool as a bait to bring...
Well, I just messed up, okay.
It's okay, honey, relax.
Yeah. Picking on me.
No, I'm not.
Anyway.
So Gozar is following them.
Yeah.
The plan goes awry. I get, like, there's a power issue.
Yeah, the power issue.
And so Zool, excuse me, now I'm doing it too. Zool is freed of the trap, and this time possesses Lucky, the potential girlfriend.
Yeah.
And so now she's Zool, and it seems like
Gozar is now,
once again at full power, and it seems like things are pretty hopeless until
Bill Murray says, "Hey, Flat Top." Yeah. And there's your original Ghostbusters back in
action.
And Janine was there earlier in the movie.
She's the one who gives them the house. Yeah.
And tells a little about the Egon and stuff. So you have a nice moment with the originals. A nice callback to the "Are you a god?" line.
Yes! Oh my gosh. I loved that bit so much because she says it so smarmily, like she knows he's going to get the wrong answer. God. Are you a god? And he has that moment, and it's of course like everybody's thinking, Ray, next time someone asks you if you're a god, you say yes. And it comes to him and he's like, and the other two go, "Oh, Ray, come on. Ray, you've had 30 years to think about this. Come on." And he goes, yes. He's so proud of himself.
So anyway, they start to, try to trap Gozar and stuff like that. And unfortunately, they get thrown aside, much like they did in the original. Mm-hmm. And then Phoebe starts shooting at him and stuff like that. And meanwhile, Podcast is trying to get the trap, but he's got Marshmallow Men attacking him.
Stay Puft Marshmallow Men.
So basically, and then the moment that truly just brings the house down in terms of emotions.
Yeah.
Phoebe's trying to hold this big thing, and then you see a ghostly image helping her hold it. And it's basically like a computer ghost creation of Harold Ramis.
It's really good.
It's really well done. It's not it's not creepy like with what they did in Rogue One with Peter Cushing, where that's good. Because like I said, Egon's character doesn't say anything. They don't try to make it some actor fill in as Harold Ramis.
But it works. Like they do just enough to make it work.
Yeah.
And it's very.
And then they all work together to finally trap Gozar, and then
once and for all.
Yeah, and then the dogs train back and they break out of the thing like they did in the original.
Yeah, Lucky and Gary are free.
And then you have this nice moment where all four of them are standing together and they all kind of look at him, and if that doesn't, just the look on Dan Aykroyd's face.
My god, like he could not stop crying, and as soon as Egon shows up, I started tearing up.
Oh yeah, me too.
And then it's all like, okay, all right, okay, climax, big action, it's cool. But as soon every time they cut to Ray, just with tears, tears. Every time they, I was also just.
Yeah, he's like, I'm sorry, I didn't believe you.
They are just legit, just. Yeah. It's very, very emotional, and it's a really loving tribute to Harold Ramis.
Yeah, and he gets to reunite with his daughter and hug her
and that's what
check in on his grandkids.
And that's what gives him the ability to move on and cross over.
Yeah.
So it's all it's this very I'm getting a little verklempt talking about it again.
Yeah. It's anytime I mention it, it's I went on the phone with my parents earlier telling them about what they did with it.
It's really, really nice. Do we want to talk? What do we want to talk about first? The post-credit sequence, because there's two of them.
There are two, yeah.
And we were the only two in the audience
who
witnessed the second one. Or do we want to talk about audience reaction first?
We can talk about audience reaction.
Okay. Yeah. Because we saw this in about a half full because there's still a pandemic going on.
Pandemic, yeah.
About a half full theater, and I would say of the audience, about 2/3 of them were kids.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that's why we mentioned earlier in the review that this movie was very clearly made for fans of the original and their kids.
Yeah.
This is primarily a kids movie,
right? But yes, I think that and
I think they were having a blast.
They were, and I think it's one of those things that I said earlier that it brings it back when you see a kid enjoying a film like that and having such a good time and shouting out things, it makes you feel like, man, I remember what that was like to be a kid and being in the theater and how big of a deal it was to see something on the big screen.
Yeah, and it was
a nice moment. Yeah,
and it's also in keeping with the spirit of Ghostbusters as a whole. Because we're not the first people to say this. The original Ghostbusters film was not meant for kids. As is obvious when you go back and watch it and see some of those jokes that may have flown over your head as a kid. And it's all like, oh,
right?
Oh, geez,
that's what that was.
That's what that meant. But because when that film came out, it was such a huge hit with kids. Then you got the real Ghostbusters cartoon. And that was why when the second Ghostbusters film came out, Dan Aykroyd was very aware of the large kid following this thing had, and that's why nobody's smoking anymore. The jokes are a lot more toned down, certainly a lot less sexual in nature. Because they were aware, this is for kids now. We're gonna let the kids continue to embrace this, and that's the comic book series, the video game, Extreme Ghostbusters cartoon that came out in the 90s, if anyone remembers that, and Kylie. There's I feel like this is follows through on that.
Yes.
It fits in with that fairly nicely.
Totally.
And as shown, very obvious, the kids we saw this with were just eating this up.
Yeah.
They loved this movie. The part where he does, the guy does the who you gonna call line.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, this one kid yells out, "Ghostbusters! I knew that answer!" It's all especially when you saw wanting to groan at that joke. I thought it was funny.
Funny.
Or a lot of the purposefully bad jokes that Phoebe tells. But it's the kids in the audience were cracking up.
Yeah.
They loved this movie, and I think it really emphasized who this was meant for.
Right.
And it's also just a really nice passing of the torch.
Right.
When the original Ghostbusters show up on screen, our whole audience burst into applause.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And it's been a while, I think, since pandemic.
Yeah.
But it's been a while anyway since you had that kind of reaction from an audience. So the fact that they did that means that they were doing something right in the way that they were handling quote unquote fan service or homages, and that it was heartfelt rather than cynical.
You done?
Yes, honey. Oh my God, why are you like this today?
I'm just being sassy with you.
Okay.
Sassy for the camera. Anyway, no, but I was gonna say that I was talking to a friend of mine, and he made a good point about the fan service or the homage stuff. He says, if this had come out in '91, a lot of that would have been very cringy. It would have been a lot of times when people make sequels, they'll be like, "Ha ha! Remember that joke from the first one?
Yeah.
Ha ha ha! We're gonna do it again, but it won't be as funny."
Yeah.
But I think the fact that it has been so long. And it's been so long since we've seen them all together.
And one of the creators has passed away.
Yes, and I mean, for that, it's I think it's more touching. It's more hey, this was.
Yeah, and I feel like people who want to call it cynical or a cash grab or whatever, I think it says more about them than it does about the actual film.
Agreed. And we all know what the real cash grab was. Anyway, we're not going to go into that.
Who cares?
But I think that was... And, he made a good point, too, the friend that I was talking to. He says... Because I said something about 2016, and he actually liked that film. And I said, that's fine, And he says, I really don't listen to what actors or directors or other critics say. I just go and watch the movie.
Yeah.
And then I make my own judgments.
Yeah.
And I said, that's a good way to go about it.
Exactly.
Because it's easy, especially with social media, to get on oh, this person said this movie's awful, or this cartoon's awful, or I'm not even going to bother to watch it then. But, like, you know, I started reflecting on, like, yeah, you know what? When I used to go to the movies, it'd just be like, I'd see a preview for something. I'm like, that looks good. I think I'll go see that.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't see it. And even if it was trashed by critics or other people, like, why the hell did you go watch that? Like, I think I've related the story before to people. I'm just like, I remember going and seeing Spider-Man 3 and actually liking it the first time I watched it. But then once I talked to more people that were like, oh, God, what? You love? Oh, my dad hated it. And I'm like, my wife hated it. You know, it's like, you know, and I'm like, and then I started to see some of their points. But when I went to see it, it was a midnight screening. Like, it was the first, yeah, and, you know, a friend of mine or whatever, and we had a blast.
Yeah.
You know, so I mean, yeah, it definitely, if you look back on that one, it has problems. But I think that's a good thing for everyone to start doing more. Stop, like, if someone likes something, stop trashing it.
Yeah.
You know, let them like it.
Exactly.
Even if you think it's awful, just let them like it.
Yeah, like,
you know,
different things
life is too short.
Different things are going to appeal to different people.
And if you don't like this film, then okay, whatever.
Yeah.
But, like, I personally, it's like I said, he said it too, and it's like one of the best films I've seen this year. In terms of just quality of... The comedy was good, but it wasn't... I think when he mentioned it was a good thing, he says, you know, I think maybe Ghostbusters doesn't have to be a straight comedy anymore. Yeah. You know, for 84, that's what it was. Mm-hmm. But it's... Yeah. I think it definitely now it can have... What this film definitely had was heart.
Yeah,
and you can tell that there was a lot of love. Because it wasn't just a, hey, we're going to rip off that scene from the... You know, it was an homage. It had its own feel. And... I think
fan service in a good way, as someone else put it.
Yeah, I think it's another viewer said it's like Force Awakens done right. Yeah, we won't get into that whole fiasco.
So speaking of, Force Awakens and follow-ups to films that are sort of a palate cleanser, like this one was.
Yeah.
Shall we talk about those post-credit
We will talk
sequences?
about those post-credit scenes.
Yes.
So yes, these are also spoilers. So. If you already watched the rest of the
video, you already know.
As well. But, so the first one is just kind of a cute callback, and it's basically Peter's doing the thing that he did in the first one, except that Dana Barrett, Sigourney Weaver, who wasn't in the movie before this, because you just see the credits and you see her name, and you're like, but she wasn't there. Where is she? And then boom, there she is. So clearly identifying that they're still together.
Yeah.
But she's doing the card thing where it's like. You know, the thing he was doing in the first one.
Yeah, it's like 2,
reading.
no 3 wavy lines.
Yeah.
A 5-pointed star. You marked the cards, didn't you? I marked the cards.
And then she kept shocking him until, you know,
it's like, okay, you two have a kinky love life.
I know, right? Yeah. Well, that was a nice way. It was like, yes, they're still together. Cool, you know.
Yeah.
And in a way, it's kind of funny because they... it's sort of funny because in the 2016 one, that's exactly how they did Sigourney Weaver too. They had her in an after-credit scene they didn't have in the actual movie.
Yeah, but this time it feels
this
like...
one actually fit and
it actually fit. It feels more like an intentional joke. Like, again, right when you're asking, wait, Sigourney was it? There's Sigourney.
There's Sigourney, yeah.
And in the other one, it felt like she's like, put me in this as little as possible.
Yeah. Anyway, so that was just a fun little homage one there. But then the end credits scene, we had heard earlier that Winston had become a successful businessman.
Yeah, he's very rich now.
Yeah, so good for him. Way to go, Winston.
Yes.
Respect for Winston and Ernie Hudson.
Always respect for Winston.
Yeah, and Ernie Hudson because he's awesome. Mm-hmm. And we first started off with a flashback scene with Annie Potts giving this thing to
her lucky coin.
Her lucky coin to Harold Ramis.
Yeah.
Egon, in case he doesn't make it back, type of thing. Just before the end. That was a nice touching moment.
And then in modern day, she has the coin again.
Yeah. For me, let me just say, just not to go off the thing before we get finalizing what happens. That was the one problem I had in Ghostbusters 2, because they had established this connection between him and Annie Potts, Janine, yeah, and then they just like threw it out the window, and then they had her with Louis Tully, which, like I said, I like Louis Tully, but it was just like, but no,
yeah,
I liked their kind of like, it was, you know, it was nice saying. So it was a nice, to me, it was like a nice callback that she obviously cared about and so that. But she's talking to Winston and all that. And earlier in the movie, they talk about how the old firehouse is a Starbucks now, and you know, But Winston actually takes the Ecto-1 and takes it back to the firehouse. So he has obviously purchased the firehouse back. So hinting at the perhaps that we will reopen. Back open for business.
Yes. And then, because, like, again, there's been a lot of, like, for decades about wanting to, or at least from the creator's perspective, wanting to expand the Ghostbusters brand, where there's like this idea that there's a Ghostbusters headquarters everywhere in the, like, not just in New York.
Right.
And so this is the, like, kind of kickstarting that idea that like this is going to be reopening, but we've also got a branch in Oklahoma. And so starting to, like, build up the Ghostbusters thing, and that there's actually going to be some ghosts to bust, because they still have, like, it pans over to the wall container control from the original movie.
Yep.
Which
the red light.
yes, which would have the light that turned on when it was full of ghosts, and when the camera cuts over there, the light goes on, which means there's still ghosts in the building. We're ready to break out. So, like, they definitely have plans. And I have to be honest, I'm on board with those plans.
Absolutely.
I hope any follow-up for this does a great job.
Absolutely. And I would say, too, that, that's a cool thing. I think you could easily have a thing with Winston training some new recruits or something like that, kind of like they did with Extreme Ghostbusters, where Egon was training them. But I think there's definitely a lot of ways to go. I think whether it's movies or something on the streaming service, I think it could be fun too. So as far as things I would love to see in a future thing, I'm not gonna lie, I'd love to see Walter Peck show back up. I think he's shown back up in the video game, but I'm like, is William Atherton still alive? Because if he is, get that guy back.
I know, right? Yeah,
he was so fun.
Well, because in the video game, he was he actually gets possessed by Shandar. And so, like, one of the levels is having to exercise him.
Like, I would like to see. It's like one of those things where almost like a villain kind of gets redeemed or something, you know, by, like, they actually have to help. So it's kind of like, I don't know. I would love to see that character back, and hopefully, like, Louis Tully shows back up in a future thing too. I know Rick Moranis is kind of like, I've kind of gone for it, but, like, it's like, come on, dude, it's Ghostbusters.
So wrap up.
I think so. So overall, like I said, to me, it's been one of my. I've seen a decent amount of good films this year, but I in terms of just overall theatrical experience and just the heart of the story and the emotions that I felt afterwards, no movie has. Like I said, we really like Shang-Chi. But that was just like, okay, this was fun, and it was, it was good fun and stuff like that. But, like, to be able to literally come out of a movie and typing about it on Facebook or sending a message on text, and every time I mentioned the tribute stuff, still winding up with tears. That to me, that's the sign of a good movie, if that's having that much of an effect on you. So I definitely ignore what the critics say. Make your own decisions. And I would definitely see this when it's in theaters. That's definitely a movie you want to see in the theaters. And you can see it on a rental. But I think if you feel safe, streaming. If you feel safe to go out, vaccinated probably is the better way to go about it. But I'm not going to go on that thing. But, like, feel safe to go out to the theater. Even with a matinee, maybe there's not as many people there. It makes you feel more comfortable. But, like, in terms of that, like, it's a great experience, and it's just a phenomenal movie. So, double thumbs up. 2 thumbs up from me too. I thought it was great. Beautiful film. Exceeded our expectations. And we look forward to more. And obviously, the next movie I'm going to see is Spider-Man: No Way Home. So, I'm sure that one's going to be up on the levels of awesomeness too. All right, guys, thank you for tuning in, and we hope you enjoyed our review. Yes. Good night.
Good night.